Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Welcome. It's Don't Worry Wednesday.
thanks.
This is our show that we talk about your stuff. And we're talking about money. Apparently, people owe people money in the chat. Did you notice that?
I didn't. Why do you guys owe each other money? What's going on? Is there some kind of scheme going on? You guys wrapped up in a scheme?
Something. Man, it sure
Not all
seems like
schemes
it.
are bad. You can have a good scheme.
You can.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm supposed to tell you not to worry because you were worrying.
Oh, snap. Uh,
Does
well,
Ryan sound weird? It's possible Ryan
Yeah,
sounds weird.
does.
Okay,
I do sound weird?
let's try this. How about now?
I do as well.
Do you guys still
Oh,
sound weird? How about like
I,
you got to talk in order for that?
no, I'm afraid to talk now. How's it sound?
Fixed now.
It's fixed.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man, we fixed
Maybe.
it.
Good job, Joe. I don't know what you did, but you
See if
knew
the
what to do
chat
and you did
agrees.
it.
Yep. Well, hey, you know what? It's all part of learning, So, yeah, so welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday, the show with manifold technical difficulties and where we like to talk about your guys' stuff and the stuff that you guys have going on. We are not professional counselors or therapists or anything like that. We just want to be your friend. We want to help in any way we can. We want to offer some love and encouragement and maybe some perspective along the way. We know you guys are probably smart enough to figure a lot of this stuff out on your own, but it helps to have someone in your corner and maybe to look at a situation from outside of it, so it's easier to see the path that lies ahead. But anyway, yeah, I'm Joe, and Ryan is above
I'm
me.
Ryan.
Look at that guy.
I'm here.
Man, you look good, and apparently you sound better now.
I sound better than I ever have.
Better than ever.
Better than I ever have.
Amazing. And with us is Princess. She's keeping our show all handled, put together, and everything because she's amazing. And yeah, so this is it.
Cool.
We look good.
We look good. Not as good as you guys in the chat, but we look good.
Right, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true.
Which means you guys look even better, of course.
You do. You guys look amazing. But yeah, so anyway, let's man, how you guys doing?
How you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Ryan?
Amazing. I'm always good, man. You don't even have to ask. You know I'm good.
Hey, you know what? But it's good to ask.
Mm-hmm. I could be drowning in the ocean and be like, I'm pretty good. Pretty
Yeah.
good. Could you get me out? But I'm pretty good.
All right, good. How are you doing, Princess?
I'm doing fine.
You're doing fine?
Fine.
Fine.
Fine. That means end.
That's end.
Oh, my bad.
I'm doing end. It's spelled the same. Isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing end. Doing finish, actually. Fine is
Finish.
finish.
Finito.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that right? Is it really finito?
I don't know. It's where you end in the song.
Is it Italian or French?
Probably Italian.
I believe it's Italian. Okay.
I think most of the stuff in music scores is Italian for some reason.
Yeah. Yes. There are a few things that aren't, but I think most things are Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because I don't even think did the Italians even invent the system? I don't think so.
I don't know, maybe it's Latin.
Oh, that would make sense. I know that. Yeah, you want to say Latin. I think Italy uses a lot of Latin. So Italy isn't real. Thanks, Kat. Thanks for letting us know. This whole time I was convinced, but yes, you've heard it here. This is the truth.
That's
Italians aren't real. That explains Mario and Luigi. That's why
because they're not really real.
Yeah, they're not real.
Right. So awesome. Silencio, Bruno.
Silencio.
Anyway, awesome. Well, welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. We've got some topics. I knew I was going to get the word out as soon as I tried hard enough. But all right, so I'm gonna go down a list of names. If you hear your name, you can let us know you're here, and we'd be happy to do your topic. And Meow, if you're here, you've got a handful of topics.
Yeah.
So yes.
I even
So
have another one that's not curated yet.
oh wow, okay, cool. So thank you guys all for your topics. I'm gonna go through the list of names now. Nihilus, Wandering Soul, Logan, Sparrow, Meow, Anonymous, Shark Jelly, Switch McButton,
Whoa.
and Meow again.
Switch button. I like it.
Yeah.
That's a new one I've not heard.
Yeah, it's a cool name. So if you heard your name, let us know you're here, and we'd be happy to do your topic. Otherwise, what we'll probably do is just start with the anonymous one, because anonymous may or may not be here.
That anonymous one was older.
It is a bit older. It's from like 21 days ago.
I can still start with it though Ash is in the chat. So
Oh.
those would be the two that I would pick from.
Wait,
is
does Ash have a topic?
Ash has a priority topic.
Really?
Is Meow? Yeah, Ash is the topic at the top.
Wait a second.
I think you.
I need to refresh this page. Hold on.
Yeah, you said all of them except for that one. So I was like, huh, how? Whatever. Maybe he'll get to it.
Hey, so okay, Ash.
Ah, there it is.
There it is. I see it.
Yes.
All right.
Missing.
Missing. I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Sadie?
Yeah, I guess Meow's not here.
Sadie?
That would
Okay.
be my assumption on how that name would be pronounced.
All right.
I believe it's Sadia.
Sadia?
Sadia. Okay, I don't know. It's Sadie. Sadie. Sadie?
Pretty sure it's Sadie. I'm pretty sure it's a variation off Sadie.
Okay.
Right on. Okay. Well,
I'll
start with that
Google
one
it just
then.
in case.
What's that? You're gonna look it up?
I'll look it up. I'm sure it is Sadie, but
Because
I'm gonna
usually
look it up.
it's Sadie with an I. Sadie. But it wouldn't surprise me that they just change it with a Y.
It's Sadie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's specifically from American English.
Perfect. That is how her name is pronounced. Sometimes I call her Sade Yeet.
Sadie.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. Well, cool. Well, yeah, we'll start with this one. And Princess, are you ready?
Give me one moment.
All right. We will give you a moment. Princess, you were pronouncing it right. You're genius.
Good job.
I wouldn't call that genius, but
Genius.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
okay. Ready? Sorry for the wait.
Hey, no problem. All right. Go for it, Princess.
In middle school, I was really close to this girl named Sadie. My friend group would joke around and assign family names to each other. Like there was a mom, sister, aunt, and things like that. Sadie was my niece, but then later changed to being my daughter. Regardless of all this, we were very close. Her being so innocent and sweet did indeed act like a daughter. I know all this might sound a bit weird, but it brought us closer together. Sorry, I know that it doesn't really have much to do with my topic, but I thought that I should share it just so you knew how close we were. Us being so close, she felt like family. Not a daughter, since she's only a few months older or younger, but more like a sister. We would talk every day, but since quarantine, sometimes she'd go for a bit without talking. It was usually only a few weeks, and she'd respond that she was busy with something, apologizing, which I understand. But now, the last time I've talked with her was this last August. Some of my texts wouldn't go through, so I thought I was blocked, but that doesn't make sense because she was the sweetest person and wasn't the kind of person that would block someone. Then my messages started to go through again, but then they stopped. Today I texted her and it went through. She hasn't read any of my messages though. I'm extremely worried that she might have gotten hurt or something worse, but I have no way of figuring out what happened. My best friend said that maybe I should try contacting her parents. The problem is, I don't have their phone number. The thought of her being hurt or maybe even dead is really killing me. It isn't like her to go this long without responding. I've asked some of my friends if they've heard from her, but they haven't either. I really have I don't have any options, and I don't know what to do. From Ash.
Mm. Wow, Ash, this is definitely a concern. I would probably be concerned too if I had a friend that wasn't responding or texts weren't going through or whatever. I know that, I'd probably be in the same boat as you are. So, man, Ryan and I can do our best to help you during this situation. I know it's really tough, but I'm going to turn it over to Ryan so we can hear what he has to say. So, Ryan, have at it.
Yeah, I'll give it my best. I mean, this is a tough situation. When you're really close to someone, you know that they would never just kind of like ignore you entirely for that long. It is hard. And you're not sure because you can't get a hold of their parents. You can't figure out what's going on. And this was a person in real life, so that means they at least live in the same town, right? Um, it's not weird at all, by the way, for the mom, sister, aunt, niece, daughter thing. That's very, very common. I had a lot of groups in my school that were doing that, so it's not too weird. So, anyways, yeah. I think what I would do if I were you is I would try to figure out a way to get a hold of their parents. One thing you can do is you can contact your school. They'll know. And there is a chance that one of your friends knows how to contact their parents, or if their parents are friends with any of your friends' parents. Um, you know, like that's another way. So I think you have a couple of different ways to get a hold of them. In the past, it was a lot easier. You used to just be able to pull out the yellow pages, this book, and it had the list of everybody's number in it in your town, and you could open it up and just boom. All right, that's what I'm looking for. I'll call them. You can't do this so much since the cell phone era. So yeah. Oh, okay. You said it's a problem. I go to an online school, and as far as I know, she still goes to public school. Okay. That's fair. Yeah. But again, I think those are the best options you have if you want to try to get a hold of her and her parents, figure out what's going on. There's a chance that she is ignoring you, but not in a way that has anything to do with you. I have experienced this before myself. I've done this, and then I know people who have done this to great lengths before, where they pretty much just talk to nobody and they don't respond to anybody, and they kind of just silence themselves from talking to everybody, usually as a form of depression, kind of just like not necessarily depression where they're considering suicide, but a depression where it's like, I have no desire whatsoever to talk to anybody, and I don't want to talk to anybody. And if I can avoid that at all costs, I will. And that might be the place that she's in right now. I know a couple of people who've gone through that. The best thing you can do is if she starts talking again, just rejoice in that and welcome her back, and don't be mad at her for disappearing. But until then, what do you do? I guess, yeah, see if you can in any way, think outside the box and get a hold of her parents. One thing you can do is you can find, I don't know if you know her parents' name, probably not. If you knew her parents' name, you could probably find it out and find out the information you need online. But if you don't, then that's pretty hard. Especially if you, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, you could still maybe call the school and ask. In fact, that might be the best thing to do, is just call the school. If she goes to public school, then she's probably showing up to school, maybe. And then you can go, okay, met her mom once but didn't catch her name. Yeah, you can probably call that public school. It's not a big deal to just do that. You just call them and you say, hey, I have a friend who lives in this school, and I'm worried that she's dead. So I am curious about this person. And then you name them, and they'll look up the records for you, and they'll probably let you know what's going on, or give you the ability to contact their parents. You could even say, hey, I'm looking to contact the parents of blah, 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 and they'll probably help you out. They might ask you a few questions like why, and then you give them your concern and they'll say, yeah, that makes sense. It might be a better way to do it. Just ask for their parents first rather than giving them the option of saying, yeah, we don't know if this person wants you to know whether they're alive or not. But anyways, I think that if you contact at school, it might be the best. So you said, I also don't know what school she goes to because as far as I know, she didn't go to the high school I went to last year. Okay. There's a chance you could contact your middle school and say, hey, do you have any records of this person, of their parents' phone numbers? You could probably do that. I know that's it might take a lot of courage to do that, but because sometimes it just takes courage to call people. But once you do it and it's over, it's like, yeah, that wasn't really that big of a deal. So yeah, you could contact the middle school you guys used to go to and ask if they have any records of what their parents' phone numbers are, so that you can get a hold of them to check to see if their daughter's still alive and that sort of thing, because they've been unresponsive for the past several months without any hardship that you know of. So I think that's my best advice, best thought of how to get a hold of this person. And also just the possibility is out there that she's been kind of ghosting everybody, hasn't talked to anybody in a long while because she's depressed and just doesn't feel like it, so she doesn't. She's not mad at anybody. She just doesn't want to talk, and that happens sometimes. So
yep.
That's what I got. I'm gonna give it over to Joe, see if he's got anything that might help.
Well, I'm going to go right along with you, Ryan. And I will also say, Ash, if you do decide to make the phone call to whatever school, the middle school or the high school or whatever school you think she might be at, that be prepared. They might not want to give that information out. That might be something that they just, they don't want to divulge that because of privacy issues and stuff like that. So, so if that happens, that's okay. I mean, you're really doing pretty much all that you can. I see you have in the chat here, the last time we talked, we were having our usual good conversation, and then all of a sudden she stopped responding, and I haven't heard from her since then. So man, that definitely can be a bit painful. I know I've been ghosted before. I've been ghosted a handful of times, usually just on Discord. I don't think I've been blocked before. So I'm not sure what that experience would be like, but I know how frustrating it can be. At first it's like, did I say something? Did I make them mad? Like they're not responding to me. And so then you go through all this thought process of, oh my gosh, I must have said something that really upset them, or whatever.
It's a nightmare.
And then, you go through this, and then the next day you still don't hear anything. And then the next day you still don't hear anything. And I've been ghosted enough times to have, like, I've got a standard policy of how I message people. Usually it's like the first day, if this is a person that I've been talking to regularly, like every day, right? I'll send like 4 messages the first day I don't hear anything. And then the next day I'll send 2. And then the next day I'll send 1. And then I'll wait a couple days. And then I might send another one, just kind of like a well-wishing message at that point. Just like, hey, just trying to leave the door open, saying, hey, I miss talking to you. I'd really like to keep talking to you. I hope you're okay. And, stuff like that. But that's kind of that's kind of my process. I remember the most recent time I got ghosted by somebody on Discord. I went through that process and never heard anything. And then my brain is just doing the same thing that yours is doing. Like, are they okay? Are they sick? Did they get hurt? Like, did something happen in their family? You have all these questions like, are they still alive? Like it's nuts. And then I happened to see this person pop up on Discord. So at least I knew they were okay and they were alive. So that's another thing you can do. I don't know if this friend is also on any online platforms, if you can check any of those to see if she's active anywhere, at least then you would have the answer of knowing, okay, she's all right. She's still alive. And, just for whatever reason, not wanting to talk to me. And sometimes that's where it gets left, unfortunately. And I know that's a painful, heart-wrenching thing, because I don't know, if you're like me, I would like to know why. Like, what did I do wrong? Why did you not want to talk to me anymore? And then, but it just never comes, and that can be a really painful thing. But eventually, time passes, and one of the things you can do, one of the things that I've learned helps a lot, is the passing of time along with making new memories. So, it doesn't have to be like finding a new friend. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It could just be like, I'm going to go do some things so I have some new memories under my belt. And what that does is that kind of softens the blow a little bit of this person leaving your life, because that is really painful, especially when this person has been close to you. When you've got a friend, you've got a confidant, you've got, somebody that you share this special connection with, and then all of a sudden they're just gone without a trace for whatever reason. And I know that's really hard, and I'm really sorry for what you're going through, Ash. Ash in the chat, my best friend also said that she could have just gotten a new phone, and that could be it. But still, I mean, that's possible. That could line up with the texts not going through, and then all of a sudden the texts are going through. It could be possible she got a new phone with a new phone number, and so then somebody else has the new phone number, and so you were texting them. It's crazy. A lot of times, like, if I get a text from somebody that I don't know, I always text them back and say that they got the wrong number, just so they're not like freaking out and stuff. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean, Ryan?
Yeah.
Well, because seriously, either they're freaking out because they're not getting a response, or, like, they just keep texting me as if I'm that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They're like, why aren't you responding? Blah, 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 blah.
There was one guy that, I don't even know if I should share the story, but I will. I got this phone call, and it was this dude yelling at me. And I was like, holy cow, whoever this guy's trying to call is mad. Or he's mad at them, but it's definitely not me, like, because I don't even know at all what's going on here. So I called him back, left a message, because he didn't answer. I was like, hey, you've got the wrong phone number. Whoever you were trying to contact, I am not them. And then I get another call from this guy, which goes to the message machine, because I don't know the number, and I just leave it to the messaging machine, and I don't know the number. And it's the guy yelling again, basically the same things, thinking he contacted the right person. So I called him back, and I was like, dude, you've got the wrong phone number. And for like a month, I kept on receiving these angry phone calls. And the sad part was, this person was very mean, and it was being incredibly mean and swearing and rude at their son.
Oh, no.
And they thought my phone number was their son's phone number. And I was like, that's not a good situation.
Yeah.
But it was like, you said you'd effing be here, but you're effing not. You gotta show up on time if you're gonna effing blah 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 blah. Yeah, I'm gonna ground you when I get home. You're gonna get such a beating. Blah blah blah. I'm like, dang, dude. It was awful. It was awful. I was like, just praying for him. Jeez. Anyways, and then I can only imagine, like, he's calling me. He thinks his son got that message, but he didn't. So now he's even more mad at his son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyways, crazy. But yeah, I always respond if someone calls me and they got the wrong phone number, or they text me. But not everybody does. Some people just leave it there. Like, yeah, they text the wrong number. Oh well. ignore, delete the message. You know, I know a lot of people that'll do that. They'll just delete the message. They don't try to correct the person or anything, or try to help them out, whatever. So.
Yep. It's wild. I remember, my parents' old phone number, the house phone number, right, was like one digit off of the county jail.
Oh, the county jail of all things.
So, and for some reason in my area, people would get out of jail at like 3 a.m. That's when they would get out of jail. And so there would be phone calls coming in at 3 a.m. Hey, I'm just wondering where my so-and-so is at, blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to pick him up to get him out of jail. And all this stuff. And I'm like, what? That is so weird.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. But anyway, so we'd always get phone calls about that. So it's crazy. But anyway, Ash, I am really sorry. I'm really sorry for this situation. I know it's painful and I know it's hard. And I can only imagine after this amount of time what must be going through your head and in your heart, and that is a tough situation. So, Ryan, did you have anything else on this topic?
No, I don't really have much else. I wish I could help more, but that's basically all I can give. I give one more thing, one more piece of advice, and that was something Joe was talking about. Try not to beat and worry yourself to death. You know, I've been through the experience enough that of like, oh shoot, I messed up, I made a mistake or something, right? And and your just mind is going crazy for days and days and days and days, and it stinks. And that's like all you can think about, and it's just rough. I would highly recommend doing what Joe said, make some new memories, move on, and stray away from thinking it was you. Because here's the thing, even if it was you, like, it's better that you don't know it's you and to have a clear mind and to continue with life than to imagine it was you, even if it was you and you don't know, than to imagine it was you and wreck your own life because you're freaking out about this thing. Okay. So it's not wrong to think, oh, I messed up. In fact, it's a good thing because it shows you've got humility, right? It shows you've got the ability to recognize that you can make mistakes and things like that, right? But don't overdo that, because you will absolutely just wreck your own life. This is Don't Worry Wednesday, and we want to say don't worry about it. Life's going to be all right. But if you ever get to hold contact with this person again, right? It'll be sad if you don't. But if you don't, life's still okay, still fine. There's no problems with life itself just because of this one person, right? Life goes on. Don't imagine that you were the problem, because a lot of times it's not you. In fact, if you're the problem and they don't bring it up to you, then it's not really that you've been the problem. Because if they walk away and choose to let whatever problem it was destroy their relationship, then they've made the mistake, not you, right? If I have a problem with someone, I bring it to them and I say, hey, look, I messed up, you messed up, let's figure this out, right? And we talk about it. That's the way to get it done. That's the way to get a problem solved, and the way to have a good friendship. You solve the problems as you go, and you talk about them, and you're open, right? But if someone goes, oh, this person hurt me, I'm never talking to them again, and they leave, well, then the end of that friendship is not your fault. It's theirs, right? Because they're the one that chose to leave. So I say this not to slander this person, because we don't know that this is even what they did, right? For all we know, who knows? Like, they could have gotten a new phone, they could have lost their contacts, they could have they could be in really deep depression, they could be in jail, for all we know, right? Something crazy like that. Who knows? Maybe they got caught up in a weird thing, they said okay, and then all of a sudden now they're in jail, right? It sounds crazy, but hey, things happen. So if you find yourself beating yourself up, or as Meow said, overthinking, if you find yourself in that scenario, try to remind yourself, it's not your fault. If they've run away, if if they've stopped messaging you and you've done what you can to message them, it's not your fault. So you've done no wrong. So clear your conscience. Just say, oh, I'm clear. I'm in the clear. I've not done anything wrong at this point. And so I can be fine to continue on with my life. Right? Sure, I have a desire to meet with this person, but it's not so necessary that my life should be put in a position where I'm beating myself up.
Mm-hmm.
That makes no sense at all to do that, right? So, and I don't mean just beating yourself up and like just anything, any kind of worry in general. Worrying so much that I'm losing strength, right? Losing my ability to function in society or on anything. So just kind of let those worries go and flee because it's not your fault. So you shouldn't have to worry. And just continue on the best that you can. I know that's not always easy. It's not easy to just say, okay, I'm not going to worry anymore. But I think that's what you have to say to yourself. Okay, I'm not going to worry anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you might have to say that to yourself a bunch of times before you actually get it. But you'll say, okay, I'm not going to worry anymore and move on. And then it'll come back in your brain. You say, no, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to move on. And if you can't move on from it by saying that, write it down. Write down everything you're thinking on a piece of paper and then try to move on. Sometimes that helps. Write a letter to them and throw it away. No, that's what my mom does. Burn it.
I like burning
that's usually
them
when she's mad, not when the person is. Yeah, but anyways, yeah. So I just don't want you to worry too much, because I know that stinks. I've been there, and there's no reason for it. So it's not logical. It's not helpful. It's just a wreck, a shipwreck that we don't need to be a part of. So I want to do my best that I can for you to say, don't worry about it. You've done what you can, and I know there's a little bit more you can try to do. You can go ahead and try those things. And if they don't succeed, then you've absolutely exhausted everything you possibly can try. So at that point, yeah, let it go. If they respond, if you're able to get a hold of them, awesome. That's fantastic. I hope you do. Anyways, that's what I got. Back to you, Joe.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you, Ash, for the topic. You know, it's funny. I have a friend who, one of my best friends ever. I was in his wedding and everything, right? I remember texting him, you know, calling him, and like he would not respond, no response whatsoever. Finally, like after about a week of me doing that, I got a message from his wife that said, "Oh yeah, he checked himself into rehab." And I had no idea there was even a problem, right? So sometimes you never know what could happen. You know, sometimes people have something in their life that just takes a massive turn and they're not available for whatever reason for an extended period of time. So it might not be their fault, you know, and who knows at this point whose fault it is. You never know. But Ash, my heart goes out to you, and I will tell you, I want to encourage you that over time, it will feel better. With passing of time and, you know, with making new memories, like we said before, then that will soften the blow, and then you'll be able to move on with your life. And then as long as you've left the door open, who knows? Maybe years down the road, they'll pop back into your life. You never know. It could be. You know, I've had ex-girlfriends pop back into my life, and I was not happy about it.
That's right.
But that's okay. But anyway, thank you, Ash, so much for the topic. We love you, and hopefully you can get through this. But yeah, we love you. So anyway, let's move on, shall we? What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah.
What do you think, Princess?
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to go through the list of names again and see who's here. Meow, I see you're here. We got Nihilus, Wandering Soul, Logan, Sparrow, Meow, Anonymous, Shark Jelly, and Switch McButton. And yes, I see Meow here. So we could just start on one of these topics. What do you think, Princess? Do you have one that strikes your fancy?
Depending on if anyone else comes, I actually have two that would go really well together because they're very similar themed.
Okay.
Ish. They're all about roughly a similar topic, and I think that both would be great topics to cover.
Okay.
The only other one we could also cover Anonymous. I don't know if you'll go super long on it. If you plan to, then it might be better not to this time, but I mean, it's up to you guys.
Okay. Well, Meow's here in the chat, so why don't we do that?
We want correctly experiencing life.
Correctly experiencing life.
I could technically do it a different name, but you can figure out if you want to do life or anime there for the actual thing, but it basically covers it.
I don't have one, but then I'll try to refresh.
Is that the new one?
It's yes. That's why every time you've got to refresh every time,
yep,
folks.
that's a new one.
Boom! There it is. Hey, perfect. All right. Let's do that one. Meow, this is your latest topic called Currently Experiencing Life. And I'll get it up
correctly.
Oh, sorry. Correctly Experiencing Life. My bad. And I will get it up on the screen here for you. And then, Princess.
You've got a very nice bag.
Huh?
You got a very nice bag.
Oh, yes. Thank you. All right. And there you go. So, Princess, whenever you're ready.
Anime. It's something that all of us here know of, and most of us are probably fans of. From what I remember, I've always been interested in anime, but never got around into getting into it and all that until recently. So for as long as I would see people with anime stuff or hear about people talk about anime and think that it's cool, I felt at a distance from it all. Last week, my twin brother and I decided to start watching anime. Yay! There's more context, but I won't go into it. We've already watched Star Wars Visions last week, and I got Crunchyroll. We've been looking through the collection and finding the ones we think seem good, and we plan to start Toradora next week. At this point, you're probably wondering where this is going. Well, as an overthinker that I am, I find a way to stress about, worry about, and question things, primarily the latter in this case. There are some things that I'm questioning and pondering. I want to get the best experience out of anime, and really get into it and understand how the nerds feel, or something like that. I'd say I have something like of a general fear of doing things wrong, or more living life wrong. I worry that I'll watch it and I'll be too worried about experiencing it correctly that I won't fully enjoy it. I know there's no correct way to enjoy things, but that's just often how I feel. I sometimes feel a bit overwhelmed by how many different anime there are, and truly I feel overwhelmed by how much of everything there is. I also contemplate what I might be missing out, or whatever, watching the ones with dubs in dub, because that's what my brother wants to do, and it would be easier that way. And I've heard a lot about the sub versus dub, so that's where I get that. I've also pondered what purpose I will get out of anime. If it will give me fulfillment or a positive impact of some kind, the time that I will have to put towards it and other things. I also worry a lot about if I am a good person and what I do and say is good. This isn't super prominent in my thoughts about anime, but it's still there. I guess I'm just way overthinking overall, and I shouldn't be so worried. But I haven't been worrying too much about this stuff, I think, but I thought I'd just put it in here to help y'all better understand my perspective or something. In addition to my constant questioning and overthinking, I always feel like I'm sort of an outlier or an outcast of sorts. Basically, that I don't fit in with society. With this, I worry that even after watching anime and stuff, I still won't be able to relate to the anime nerds and anime discussions. I feel that I'll have a different experience and perspective with anime than others, and that my thoughts and emotions will be much different. All of these worries are probably considered weird, which makes sense considering because I consider myself weird, or at least not like others or something like that. Although I'll probably figure out these specific things on my own, at the core of each worry is a more general type of worry that often comes up. I suppose this topic is a lot more about just a late blooming anime fan. Anyways, I've gone on long enough, and I am sure I'll feel insecure about my topic when it is read. I hope this makes sense. Sorry if it's long and probably wordy and confusing, and I'll probably forget to mention something. Any thoughts are appreciated. Thanks, meow.
Wow, thank you, Meow. You definitely put some work into that topic. Oh my goodness, I am impressed. But yes, I'm kind of with you. I don't necessarily get into anime all that much. I've gotten into some anime, and I've enjoyed watching anime. Some anime I haven't really enjoyed as much as other anime, but it's a huge world of stuff. There's so much content available of all kinds. There's good and bad and ugly and crazy and weird and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I know Ryan has been into anime for quite some time, and he definitely is way more part of that culture than I am. So I'm excited to hear what Ryan has to say. So Ryan, take it away.
Sure. Yeah, I can tell you a little bit of my story. I got into anime as a young child, and I wasn't really a anime nerd at the time. But me and my brother and I, is more grammatically correct, my brother and I got into it. We started watching them at my dad's house. We would go to the Blockbuster. I don't even know if you know what that is, but it's uh, a store you can rent movies. So it's an actual store where you go in and you rent the CDs or
Mm.
the actually sometimes VHSs. Um, you could also rent tapes there and things like that that are out of date. Um, anyways, you'd rent them and you would watch them and bring them back, right? So, oh, okay, yes, a cat. I know you're old enough to remember. So, anyways, we would rent them because they're like, okay, cool cartoon kind of looking stuff that would be cool for us, and then we'd pop them in and be like, whoa, this is like crazy. We don't get to see any of this stuff on like well, we'd look at the title and it's like rated R, and then we would take it to our dad and be like, yeah, and he's like, oh, it's rated R, and I was like, well, no, we would confess to him, we would be confessing to him like, this one looks cool, but, and we read the back, but it's rated R. And he'd be like, "It's a cartoon," and he bought it, and he'd rent it, and we'd watch it as like little kids, and we're like, "Whoa!" I can see why this is rated R. This is a whoa. That was nuts. Yeah, some things were really crazy. Some things were not good. Some things were fine. Like some things were gory, and some things were overly perverted, and it was not good. Um, so, anyways, that was my introduction to anime. It wasn't really at the time. There weren't, because it was a long while ago, but there weren't all that much things to be said for like an anime fan. You would consider it anime, but at the same time, it wasn't really as developed. There weren't things like merchandise you could buy and things like that. It was just kind of just starting. So that was my introduction to anime, and it was fun. It was interesting. So I think it's great that you're getting into it with your brother as well. And I hope you guys have a fantastic time. Um, I'll tell you what, you have a lot that you said here, and one of the things that I kind of related to is the idea of like, okay, I'm watching this anime, but what is it worth to me? You know? Of course, there's that worry of like, I don't know if I'll fit into the anime culture. I might have different opinions than everybody. I hope you do. Actually, that's part of what makes it great. If you go to a community with a bunch of people like anime, you will agree completely with nobody. There will be all sorts of different walks of life. There will be people who like things that you don't, and that'll be good. That'll be fine. That's why there's so much different content out there, is to appease so many different kinds of people. And a lot of people will you know, they'll like some things that you like, but then other things they'll like that you won't like at all. So that's just the way things go. But um, so I would just try to do away with that worry. I would say, don't worry about that. That's a good thing. If your opinion is very different than, and if you come at it from a completely different direction, maybe you're not as excited about certain things like, oh, there's a new anime come out and it's super huge. It's Attack on Titan or whatever. It's super big. And you're like, I don't really care about that one that much. That's fine. You don't have to. Um, so and you might not be into certain parts of the scenes, right? For example, people are like, oh, talking about waifus and stuff like that. I don't get it. Personally, I'm just like, that's a cartoon character. I don't really understand. Like, yeah, you can adore the character, and like, yeah, that's a wonderful character concept, but what like to be like, I want to marry her, it's a bit much for me, right? But I'm not saying anybody who has a waifu, right, a character that they adore and call their waifu, a bad person, right? They're allowed that opinion. But what I'm saying is you might not, just like I myself, you get involved with all the different aspects that there are, right? And that's okay. You take what you like and then you give what you like, right? And that's really the point. It's about enjoying it and enjoying it together. But not everybody's gonna enjoy the same things. One thing though that I will say, as I was trying to say earlier, and I kind of got distracted. One thing I really relate to is like, kind of like, what's the whole point? Obviously, the point is in part to have a good time, enjoy yourself, right? But I have this thing where it's like, if I watch an anime, I want it to be really good. Now, you're like, well, duh, right? No. No, because that's not apparent in everybody. Okay, first off, there are people who will watch anime whether it's good or bad, right? There are anime critics, there are anime people who just want to get into it, right? No matter what it is, right? And that's fine. But what is good for me is an anime that's good for me, right? An anime that's good for my soul. It's an anime that what I judge as what I judge as a really good anime is that when I turn the anime off and I walk away, that anime has caused me to meditate and to think about things or to further investigate the world or myself, right? So if I experience an anime and it brings about in me something more than itself, that helps me in my growth, right? Helps me become a better person. That is a really good anime. Sometimes you'll watch an anime and be like, when's the good part? And you'll be like, waiting, and it won't ever come. And sometimes you'll be watching an anime that you're just thinking, man, this isn't a good anime. And then finally everything falls into place and it's like, oh, that's smart. That's really good. I have to think about that when I walk away. I have to think about those different concepts and juggle those battles in my head to figure out what I would do in those scenarios, or to really understand humanity a little bit better, given this new perspective, right? Sometimes anime will help you, give you many different kinds of perspectives or different kinds of characters that you can run into in real life, right? Now, of course, anime always overdoes it with certain character types where they are absolutely absurd and obnoxious, and that doesn't really happen as much in real life. And if it does, you don't get along with that person generally. That person is, yeah, that there are some things that happen only in anime, and that's fine. But yeah, for myself, it's seeking out those anime that don't just entertain me, but continue to entertain me long after they're done, in such a way that I am growing from it. I am learning from it, even though it's already been finished. I'm still learning from that anime because of the different things that it's taught me, or the different concepts that it's brought forth, and I had to study myself, right? So for me, that can be applied across the board to any kind of entertainment, right? Anime is just another form of entertainment in the end. So that's my view of it. And I'm gonna kind of leave you off on that. I know there's a lot more that you can that we can talk about here, since you gave us quite a bit. But I'm gonna stop there and give it over to Joe and see what he's got to say.
Well, I have some things I could say about anime. Like I said, I'm a fairly late bloomer. I've been 29 for a while now, and I was 29 when I started watching anime. It's incredible. And I've watched a handful of different stuff. The Brotherhood one, what is that? Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. That's one of my favorites. And you mentioned the subtitled versus dub the sub
Oh yeah.
versus dub culture. I know people who I generally tend to watch dub, partly because it's entertaining to me to see their mouths moving differently than the words coming out of their mouth. But then, I watched the dub version of Squid Game, and that's live action, not anime, but it's in Korean. And then I ended up watching it. After a while watching it English dub, I was like, okay, this is just really, really weird, right? So when I switched it to Korean and then reading the subtitles, I actually found it to be a lot more enjoyable. So
Mm.
really, you can just switch back and forth. Some of them are not available in dubbed format, so you
Yeah.
have no choice but to watch a subtitled anime, and that's totally fine. It. I think watching the subtitled one gives me a little bit more insight into the culture of whether it's Korea or Japan or whatever, because now you're hearing their language. You're listening to how they talk and how they use words and how their voice inflections and all that kind of stuff. And it's always a little
Hmm.
bit weird when, you don't get the same voice inflections with the dub actors a lot of times. I did notice that when I compared the two. So you might get a little bit more of the emotion and stuff they're trying to convey, beyond just the words, if you watch the subtitled version.
Right, because the people who are monitoring it, the actual production crew, are listening very closely to the original vocals.
Mm,
They don't have the chance to listen to the dub. The dub
mm,
people just have to hope that they get it on point.
mm-hmm.
Um, so it is oftentimes that's the case. But I will tell you, there are dubs that I've appreciated more. Like certain anime, I like the dub way more than the sub.
Mm.
Like Zatch Bell was one of them for me. The dub is way better. I think that the way better paints the picture than the sub. The sub was like the actual original voices were not as good to me. So
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is.
It
Go back
is.
and forth. Do what you like.
Yeah, yeah. Experiment. Have fun with it. You got time. You're not in a hurry. It's not like you got to complete, these things. You don't have to like get through the season as quickly as possible. You can, take your time, and excuse me, that'll work just fine. One of the things that was funny when I watched Squid Game was the English actor for the main character. He kind of talked like this, and so he was really like almost like whiny and stuff. And then when I switched it over to the subtitled, the main character had this like deep voice, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, at least it was a little bit more of a commanding voice, where the English dub was a little bit more of this whiny voice. And I was like, huh, that's really interesting. So and it could go either way. You could find more enjoyment either way. And so now when you're relating to other people who are into anime, um, how do I want to approach this? My first brush with anime culture was, I was at a convention. I was at a
No, that's
leadership
right.
convention in Columbus, Ohio, and OhioCon was going on. Like in the building next door or whatever, or like the hotel. We were kind of intermingled with hotel stays and everything, so we had all these people that were wearing like business attire, like suits and ties and all this kind of stuff. That was us. And then there were a whole bunch of people doing cosplay, you know and it was just, you had these two huge groups of people, tens of thousands of people, you know in these two like cultures. One business suits and all this kind of stuff, the other doing cosplay, and it was just crazy. And it was January and it was cold, and
Yeah, it
some
was
of these
freezing.
costumes, I'm like, how are you surviving? You got to be freezing your buns off. Like, oh my gosh, I I was impressed, for that. But it was really an interesting thing to experience that culture for the first time like that. It was really an eye opener. Like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. This is like a big thing. And once I started getting into anime, um, one of the things that I've learned to do is, I really don't care if people see me as a noob or uninformed or whatever, or like somebody who doesn't know anything about a certain area, because what that does, it gives me the opportunity to ask them questions about what they like and about what, what they appreciate about this, and really get them to talk. It helps them to feel more important. It will help them feel more respected. You will build a greater bond by asking questions of these people and listening to their answers and having a dialogue where you are digging for information, rather than if you try and come off like you know what you're talking about. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll build a lot more bridges in relationships to have that approach. So you're in a really, really good spot here. You are coming into this culture, you're coming into this group of people that know more about this content than you do. That's a great place to be, because it puts you in a position where they can feel, I don't want to say superior, but I can't think of a better word. Like they feel like they know more
Respected.
than you. What's that?
Respected.
Respected.
Mentor. They can mentor you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, totally. And that helps them feel good about themselves. And then you also, learned, even better. It also takes the pressure off of you, because you don't have to try and act like you know something that you don't. And then, be nervous about being discovered. Like, oh, I hope they don't figure out that I don't know what I'm talking about, because that, to me, that's about the most uncomfortable position in the world.
Yeah, I've been there. That stinks.
That's a tough spot to be in. But yeah, I would take that approach if I were you, Meow, and I would, really just enjoy yourself. It's entertainment. It's, you don't have to study it per se. Now, I remember when Criminal Idol was really going full force and new episodes were coming out, and there was all this speculation on the Static P server about who was the bomber, right? Who was the criminal in this situation? And I'm like, man, I just watched those and I liked listening to the songs and the artwork was cool. I had no idea that there was all this huge backlog of stuff going on and people were trying to figure this out. And I'm like, I'm totally lost, man. Like, I just like listening to the songs. But we all come in at our own speed. And we all take things at our own pace. And wherever you're at, it's where you're at, and it's fine. It's totally fine. And yeah, that's about all I have right now. Ryan, did you have anything else?
No, I mean, I think you did a great job covering a lot of
I
that.
have something I can say, but
Yeah, Princess has stuff, then go for
Yes.
it.
Sorry, I have to do a little bit of mod work here too for a moment.
Ah, yes. Mod it up.
Do you want me to talk while you do that?
Yeah, talk, Ryan.
Okay.
I like the way you say things.
Oh yeah. Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. This is the show where we talk about whatever's on your mind. Today we're doing Meow Lalo's topic, but
what
right
I would
now
like
we're
to talk
in
about
intermission. Okay.
is not just translating this to the anime community, but that this actually also applies to general life. That like as you already understand, you're not going to experience life perfectly. We don't experience life perfectly in anything really, if you want to think about it that way, because we're not perfect. But just because we have a different experience from one another doesn't make that experience bad, or it often brings something extra to the table. And if you've ever been in a conversation, it's like, oh yeah, do you remember that one moment where like Superman punched someone? Yeah, that was cool. end the conversation. Rather than, yeah, but I remember that moment where Superman punched the other guy. Or somebody then swooped back around and punched him. Oh, it was such a scene. Man, this is my other favorite moment. Like, if people have different opinions, they bring more to the table than if everyone views it the same way and has the exact same reaction. Now, there is bonding over having the same reaction, right? Like, oh, I felt that too. Like, man, at that part, when that guy died, oh, my heart broke, you know? And that can relate. But there are also good things in having different things. So I wouldn't let that be a problem. But look at that as a celebration that we're all different and that we can bring stuff and that together as a community around whatever you are a part of, you can bring that and you can bring that to each other as long as you're open-minded and open-eared so that you listen to one another, you know? That's really the part I want to, because you guys touched on the anime part really well. I mean, I've had my own experiences with anime. My first one was Fruits Baskets, dubbed. I watched a little bit of the sub, but the dub really hit home for me. You know, other ones I've liked sub. Sometimes I watch it in both. Sometimes I watch it repeatedly in both. Depends on what you like, but and what's available. But again, I feel like it's important to know that you don't need to worry about every single step that you take and micromanage to fit exactly into a location that you want to go in. Because sometimes where you don't expect to go is where life takes us. And that's exciting. Does that sound like a song?
It does, actually.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah. But anyway, that's all I really had to add to that. Is I think
that's
that
awesome.
that would be a good thing to remember, is that and I know it's hard because it can be, there's a lot of like social things, there's a lot of, but understand that often people are in a similar place as you when they come to approach a culture and they don't know what they're going to do, and often people want to bring people into that because they enjoy talking about it. Again, it's something they like. And sometimes they'll drag in people that have no interest in hearing about it, but they're still going to tell you anyways because they adore this thing and you are going to hear about it, whether you like it or not.
That's true.
But that's not everybody either, And for some people, you talk and you finally hit that thing with them, and then they go from like introvert and quiet to all of a sudden you can't get them to stop talking.
Yeah.
But again, it's about, that could be with anything. It doesn't have to just be about anime. That could be about any sort of culture or thing around it. So that's it.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Princess.
Yeah, thank you. You did say that you always feel like an outcast of sorts. And I recommend, like you said, you're weird. I recommend saying, yeah, I'm weird. I would say be proud of that. Social outcast, there's nothing wrong with a social outcast. I mean, you look at the heroes in stories, most of the time, they're outcasts, right? Because they're fighting the system, or, generally the most successful people in the world are those people who go against the grain, right? They're doing things differently than everybody else. That's why they are successful. And there's nothing wrong with being not a social outcast, but there's also nothing wrong with being a social outcast. So if you think that you're a social outcast and you've identified, yeah, that is what I am. Sometimes you could be wrong with that. You could be wrong. Maybe you're not, but maybe you are. And if you are, cool. If you aren't, cool. Like, don't let that sort of mentality or that sort of thought hold you back on anything or make you think you're doing something wrong. Because it's not a wrong or right thing. You just either are or you aren't, and it's fine either way. You can learn to be better with people, right? That's always a talent that you can learn. You can get really good at talking to people, and then maybe you're less of a social outcast, but or an outlier, I suppose. So there's always that. It's a talent thing there, but to be different from everybody is totally fine. To be weird is totally great. Everybody's weird anyways. There is no normal. So yeah, I second everything Princess said. But yeah, that's all I got.
That's it?
That's it.
Put a cork in it? flip it over, it's done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meow, in the chat, I see you say, by social outcast, I more mean that I have trouble relating and connecting with people. I feel like I don't belong or understand society or something like that. I can totally relate with you on that. I feel out of place a lot in social contexts, especially like when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
You
Just
know,
not into it.
I don't know all that stuff. You know, I don't know what's going on. You know, and everybody's talking about all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I'll just kind of nod and smile. You know, if you get good at nodding and smiling, man, hey, then you can just relax, and you don't have to ever think up something witty to say. I had this really, really great friend in school, and he hardly ever said anything, but everybody loved him because he just show up. He just kind of like, there's a group of people talking, and he just show up and walk up, and he just kind of smile and nod, and he hardly ever said anything. And if he did say something, he spoke so quietly that, you know, you'd have to be like, what'd you say, Daryl? You know, like he was awesome. But yeah, he was accepted in just about every group of people because he was just really easy to be around. He smiled, he was relaxed, and he was just really easy to have just come in. And, you know, he'd come in and hang out for a little bit, listen, smile, nod, he'd look at you and smile, you know, and then he'd go off and he'd do whatever, go to another group of people, and he'd just nod and smile and hang out and, you know, look people in the eye. It's just that little unspoken affirmation goes a really long way. And so if you can put that into your countenance, then you really don't have to worry about whether you're an outcast or not, because you can be comfortable to be around whether you know what's going on in that group or not, and just treat it like a learning experience. It's pretty amazing. But anyway, Meow, hopefully some of that was helpful for you. And go for it, man. The anime culture is huge. Huge, huge. And you could spend your whole life and not watch all of it. Even if you watched it like all the time, you still would.
24/7. Even if you never slept, you still wouldn't be able to watch it. You don't have enough time.
You'd
have to watch
so much.
all of. You could maybe, if you had enough TVs.
Maybe.
But you're not really watching them at that point. You just have them on. A bunch of them.
Yeah. Right on. So, yeah. Meow, this is something that deserves a whole topic, but a reason that I'm not very social is I'm afraid of harming, hurting, misguiding, bringing unhappiness to people. I totally understand that. And yes, that could be its own topic. So if you want to submit that as a topic, we can just put it on your tab, you know, because you've got a fair amount of topics. And I think we're going to do another one of your topics coming up now. I think. Is that right, Princess?
That would be the goal.
That's the goal. We have a goal.
Well, we're going to do it. Let's just get this goal done and over with.
Goal. We win.
Because I think that, again, it goes really well with the previous topic, and, you know, would really be a good perspective to have included, because it's part of that topic that really isn't hit on from that angle because of what the topic was covering. So
yeah, sure. Absolutely. I see what you're saying.
I will ramble no longer. Let Joe do his work.
You can keep rambling while I'm finding the thing. Is totally okay. But all right, so we're going to move right into another one of Meow's topics, and this is called the proper appreciation of beauty. And yes, like Princess was saying, this goes right along with the whole anime topic. And yes, I will get it up on the screen for you, so then you can read along while Princess reads it aloud. So, Princess, it's all yours.
Beauty is a wonderful thing, and it is also an abstract concept, like a feeling or emotion. Beauty only exists through our ability to experience it and feel it. There are many forms of beauty, and many ways to experience it. Each of the senses experiences a different form of beauty, and even different types and ways of feeling them beyond that. For example, the beauty of music is experienced through hearing it. However, although the basic concepts apply to all forms of beauty, I would like to focus on the beauty experienced through sight, or at least that is the one that I will be primarily referencing, or maybe that's just the one that I'm mainly wanting the topic over, although other stuff might apply to all forms of beauty. And that would be cool if it does. As an overthinker and overanalyzer that I am, we've heard that line before, I find myself questioning how I'm supposed to experience beauty. I experience beauty every day. I find it from art I find online, to the people that I see, to the music that I listen to the stars in the sky. There's so much beauty, and I'm not sure how I should experience it and enjoy it. It can be hard to find meaning in it sometimes, but I suppose I don't need to find meaning in it. Meaning and purpose are just things that I think a lot about. I want to experience beauty in the best way that I can, so that I can have the most positive effect, so it can have the most positive effect that it can. One thing is that when experiencing the visual beauty of people, specifically the sex that I'm attracted to, which is girls, I want to enjoy it in a more pure way that puts the sexual attraction in the background. I'm not exactly sure how to explain this. It's kind of an awkward topic. Basically, I want the sexual feelings to only be a background that adds a small amount to appreciate the beauty more, if that makes sense. I want to see it as just beauty without the sexual attraction, though having that small amount would make me appreciate the beauty more, but not turn it too much into the sexual attraction side. For some context, I'm single and never had a girlfriend. I've had a romantic thing a long while ago, but we never became girlfriend-boyfriend. These days, I've been just trying to figure out myself and life out, and I haven't been trying to get in any relationship. Another reason I'd like to figure this out, or have this topic covered, is that I've been starting to get into anime. The truth is that I've always been a fan of anime. I've just never gotten around into getting into it. I've really ever watched only the anime that was on TV, but I finally got in Crunchyroll and plan to start watching some anime. Right now, my brother and I are watching Star Wars Visions on Disney+. I've always been a fan of Japanese culture, and not just anime. But I suppose all of this isn't really relevant to the topic. I plan to make a whole other topic for that. My point is that I want to be able to enjoy and appreciate the beauty of anime to the fullest when I watch it. Sorry for making this long. This has just been something that I've been kind of wanting to figure out for a while. I hope it makes sense. Basically, I'm wanting to figure out how to experience, enjoy, and appreciate beauty for just being beautiful, and not always having to have purpose or reason behind it. I'm also trying to diminish my sexual feelings when experiencing the beauty that would cause me to have those feelings. Any help is appreciated. Thanks, Meow.
Thank you, Meow. And yes, it does make sense. And yes, Ryan and I can both relate to this, I'm sure. Males tend to be more visually oriented beings when it comes to attraction and stuff like that. At least that's what I've been taught, and that's what seems to be from my experience. But anyway, I'm gonna get right out of Ryan's way because, man, when it comes to purity and virtue and stuff like that, there is no better person to hear from than Ryan.
Whatever.
Dude, I'm telling you what. It's going to be good.
Appreciate that.
I can think of all kinds of things I could say, but I'm just going to shut up and let you talk. So, Ryan, take it away.
You know what? I'm looking forward to see what Joe's got to say because I kind of look at him the same way. So the feeling is the same.
You know what? You're not in the confessional with me, so.
All right, fine.
Touche.
Doesn't get me in that confessional.
Yeah, we're gonna do confession together today, Father. What do you think?
Yeah. What do you think? It's a good idea, right? We just came up with this. Yeah, you shouldn't have. All right.
Oh, amazing.
Anyways, so no thanks. So anyways,
can you imagine?
Yeah, no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know, and I don't want you to know. That's the way that goes.
Perfect.
After you, the feeling is the same.
Yes.
So, anyways, with this, as Joe just said, men and women are different, of course, on this. It tends to be. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just the way it is. men tend to be more visually stimulated when it comes to these type of things, including beauty itself, but especially sexual attraction, things like that. Women are more oriented, well, to I forget what it is. I think it's kind of more of a emotional thing. They're stimulated through a different medium. So, anyways, we are different, and that's okay. You know, there's. I just want to say this because there's always this thing like, oh, men are sex fiends. Well, that's not true. Women are just as much responsible, capable, and responsible, and existing out there in that medium. But we do respond to things differently and experience things differently. So, anyways, moving on from that, beauty. Beauty is a great topic. I love this topic. There's so much to be said in so little time. So I'm going to do my best, and I hope that we can get a lot out of it, including myself. So what is beauty? You know, a lot of people say that beauty is entirely in the eye of the beholder, subjective, if you will. But that isn't actually true. There are things that are objectively beauty. They are beautiful regardless of what people think about them, you know, regardless of the beholder. And if you're a Christian, for example, Meow, I know that you are, so I'm going to talk to you in that manner. Beauty is what do you call that? A shadow. Beauty is like a shadow or a figment of God's existence, right? God is ultimate beauty, right? God is ultimate love. God is the ultimate end of all of these things, which we consider beautiful, right? Oh, you're not Christian. Oh, okay. I thought you were. My apologies. So in the Christian realm, yeah, God is beauty. So when we see anything that is beautiful, it is a reflection of God, right? So that is what sets our morals as well as how we view things as beautiful or not. So when we look at something and we say, "Oh, that's beautiful," we mean to say in a way that it is godlike. But when we look at something and we say that it is beautiful, even though it's twisted and contorted, that's us misunderstanding beauty. That is us being twisted and immoral and so on. You said, I just hover between beliefs and I have no set belief system. Okay, that's fair. Got it. So when we experience beauty, it's really important to keep morals intact. I think that that's something that you're sort of kind of driving towards with your sexual inclinations and things like that, right? You don't want it to be about sex because that's not really the point of it. You want it to be about the beauty. And I think that's beautiful. I think that is wonderful. That is the right way of looking at it. And it's a good thing. Sex isn't inherently evil. Sex is beautiful as well, but it isn't the ends. It isn't the means to beauty. It isn't what beauty is about, right? And so we have to include these sexual attractions to, yeah, they're beautiful, but they aren't what all beauty is about. I think in our current society, in many different areas, the final end to a line of beauty is this act of procreation or an act of sexual nature, and it muddies and dilutes and rids beauty, of its purity, of what actually it is. Beauty should be appreciated for what it is. It doesn't have to be something that brings you to an action, especially one that is sexual, right? So when you have an attraction towards a girl, right, it shouldn't be about, oh, I find her very beautiful, therefore I must have sex with her, right? That would be kind of stupid. I'm just going to say it's kind of stupid, but that is what society generally goes towards, right? and I think that what you're doing here is you're doing the right thing in saying this is, sexual attraction is a beautiful thing, but it isn't the end. It isn't what beauty is about. It isn't what I should be chasing after. So I really appreciate that about this this topic that you posted. But here's something really interesting that you said. How do I experience beauty? How do I experience beauty in the way that is most fulfilling and so on? And here we get to something that has been talked about for, since like ancient Greek. Ash was talking about, honestly. There's a lot to be said here because it's so much time has been put into it by other philosophers, and all I can do, or the best thing I can do, is kind of philosophers, theologians, and everybody, people who have great minds to think about these things, is to kind of just repeat some of the things that they say, and that is this: in this lifetime, when you find something that's beautiful, when it's so overwhelmingly beautiful, right? Maybe it'll make you emotional, maybe make you cry, maybe it'll stun you, maybe you'll just stare and have no words, right? There are certain things in life that will give you these feelings or these experiences. And one thing about beauty is that it can't be captured. When we see this beauty, the thing we want most is to become one with it. We want that beauty, and we want it just to run through our bodies and to fully experience it at its greatest heights and to be able to hold on to it and never let go. Our desire for beauty is such that it requires the impossible. We desire beauty to be one with us, and that especially happens within relationships. When we look at this other person, we stare them in the eyes and we say, wow, that is beautiful. And we want them so much and we want to become one with them, but we can't fully become one with them, right? Our bodies just don't actually meld into one, and our consciousnesses don't meld into one, and we can just appreciate and experience that beauty from this moment on until the day we die, and that beauty is felt the same way throughout the whole thing. It's just not something that can be happened, that we can do or we can experience, but it is what we desire when we experience great beauty, right? And that is a wonderful thing. We aren't meant to experience beauty to that level. There is always going to be this greater desire for beauty to interact with us on a greater level. Whenever we get it, there are times where you're going to listen to a song and you're going to be like, wow, that was so good. That really sent me on an emotional, roller coaster. That was amazing. And then you'll seek out the song, you find it, and you listen to it again and again and again. And every time it's less and less beautiful. Beauty, much like emotions, is fleeting. It's a wonderful thing. And as a Christian, what we say about that is basically beauty is an experience that helps us to understand God, but in this lifetime, we don't get to fully experience that until we go to heaven, right? Where we can encapsulate beauty within ourselves, right? But at this moment, we get figments, which are beautiful, which is lovely and great, and we can appreciate them. But we aren't physically capable in our realm, in this human body, to fully interact with them. There's another thing to be said about beauty, and that it's painful. When something is truly beautiful, it can also be very painful. Not that, and of course, pain can be beautiful, and I don't necessarily mean this in the long lines of like suffering is beautiful, but I mean that when something is beautiful, right? Sometimes you crave it so much that it just tears you apart inside. Especially love interests like romance, right? Something is very beautiful, and I think it's something von Balthasar. Do you know his name?
It's von Balthasar.
It starts with an E. Anyways, he talks about this. He is
Eric.
It's not Eric.
Edward.
Is it? Edward? Edward sounds way closer. Maybe it's Hans Balthasar? Earth. That's what it is. Hans Urs von Balthasar. That's what it is. Oh man, that's a cool name. Hans Urs von Balthasar.
I was way off.
Eric, pretty close. He, he talks about, and he's dead. He's long gone. But he talked about the pain of beauty, and that beauty is this wondrous thing that we desire. But in the end, what it brings about is pain, because we recognize that we cannot hold it in the palm of our hands. We cannot put it into ourselves and become one with it, because that's what we want from it, but we can't have that. And when you experience this beauty and it leaves, a lot of times you're left with this craving for more and this sense of pain. And in fact, it's often why when we go and we go to a museum or we go anywhere and we see all these beautiful things, we just start to get frustrated. We just start to get frustrated, right? When you watch beauty over and over and you see all these beautiful things and you're like, you go online and you browse picture after picture after picture. You're like, wow, they did such an amazing job on this. Did such an amazing job on this. And eventually, if you keep on looking at it all, you just get frustrated because you want to interact with it, but you can't. It is what it is, and there's no interaction. You just absorb it to whatever length you can, and sometimes you can't even absorb it to as much as you want. You'll just look at it and you're like, I can see that this is beautiful, but I don't feel it. I can see that this is beautiful, but I don't understand it. And I want it. But I can do nothing. I can do literally nothing except for stare at it and hope that, I can experience it more or whatever, right? And so we end up getting frustrated a lot of times, or we get frustrated that we can't do the same. We can't create the same kind of beauty sometimes, right? So when it comes to wanting to experience beauty, that is something that has been trying to be tackled for thousands of years. And the answer is, you get what you get and be glad for it. That's all you can do. There's very little you can do to prepare yourself for the moments of beauty that come. They just come. One thing that you can do is maybe abstain from those beautiful things so that when they come, they are greater and more fulfilling. Just like entertainment, when you get bored of entertainment entirely, it's because you probably had too much entertainment or you're stressed about something, right? And if you can free your minds of overdoing yourself with too much beauty, free your mind from stressing out about work and stuff like that, yeah, you'll probably be able to experience and appreciate beauty more. But ultimately, in the end, what you get is what you get, and you appreciate it for what it is. And that's all you can do. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely more to be said. Like I said, this talk could go on for a long time. It's been talked about for thousands of years. But even just in the sexual department, I think there's so much more to be said, especially with society today and how they view things and what the right direction is. And what parts are opinions and what parts are facts. So there's a lot to be said. So I'm going to go over to Jones, see what he's got to say on all of this. I'm excited.
You're excited?
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's a great topic.
It is a great topic. And like you said, Ryan, this is something that we could go on, for quite a while about. If, we could, there are so many things to chase down in this topic. But Meow, first and foremost, I want to thank you for the topic. And I also want to impress upon you how impressed I am that you're even thinking this way. Because I can remember, when I was younger, I was just led around by my hormones, and I wasn't thinking like, how do I experience this without, having some attraction to it or having some desire for it or whatever, right? So I just kind of let myself go in that direction, and what happens is you end up trapped. It's a vice, because what you are actively fighting against already, and I'm so proud of you and I'm so impressed, is the deadly vice of lust. And that's desiring something for you, and like sexually, but you've also heard of lust for power, lust for money, all these different kinds of things, right? It's the inordinate desire to have something, right? And so when you're experiencing beauty, one of the things I've had to ask myself a few questions, and it touches on some of what Ryan was talking about. And then it's like, okay, if I start to sense that I want something as I'm experiencing its beauty, as I'm looking at this and I start to think to myself, I want that. Now a little red flag should go up and be like, ooh, I'm going down a path toward a vice. And that particular vice is lust. And it's a vice because it's an addiction, and it will bind you, and it will hold you. And, so what happens is you're less free to experience beauty in general because you're so trapped by this vice of lust.
Brilliantly said.
And, it's weird though, because, there's a pleasure involved there, and there's like good feelings that happen and stuff. And so then you might get addicted to those feelings. And then, all this stuff kind of wraps you up, and your freedom diminishes and diminishes and diminishes and diminishes over time. And then the other thing that happens is, another thing like Ryan was talking about, the beauty that you used to think was so beautiful, it's not enough anymore. You need to find something even further and even further and even further down the road. And, you can get into weird, perverse fetishes and stuff like that. And it can get really interesting and bizarre. And all that.
Maybe interesting isn't the right word.
Huh?
You said interesting and bizarre. Maybe interesting isn't. Maybe you mean strange and bizarre.
Strange and bizarre. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Interesting means we want to look it up. I don't think we want to.
All right, yeah. It's not a thing of interest.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
But just understand what you're doing here, Meow, is so impressive to me. So impressive to me. Because you're actively, conscientiously avoiding this vice. Mm-hmm. And so you are going so far, down this path beyond what most people I know. I mean, most people, we're driven by this culture of sex. We're surrounded by it. The media, it's all about it. Like sex sells is what advertisers go. Like, hey, man, you're going to get the idea that, hey, I'm going to pop open this beer and beautiful women are going to appear out of nowhere all around me. And they're going to be celebrating that I opened this beer. Right? It's crazy. Or I'm going to go drink this beer at a sports bar, and, I'm going to watch the game, and then I'm going to be surrounded by beautiful women in bikinis and all this kind of stuff. Right? And it's just, man, it's ridiculous. But what that's doing is that's playing on the vice that all of us have, and it's sucking us in to bondage. And they suck us into that bondage so we will part with our money. They're not interested in our well-being. They're interested in our money. And they know that if they put stuff that's provocative in a show or in a commercial or in a movie or whatever it is, that we will be drawn to it, especially men, right? So their whole goal is not our well-being. It's their success. And they know that if they take advantage of our weakness in this area, they can be successful in their endeavors. And it's kind of an underhanded way of doing things. It really, it's kind of sickening. But you are building up a defense against this. And I'm so impressed with you. So, there's a virtue that counteracts the vice of lust, and the virtue is chastity. And it's not just chastity in action, it's chastity in thought as well. Where does your mind go? Can you discipline your mind? When you see something beautiful, when you see a beautiful woman in an anime or whatever, right? Or in a movie or a commercial, can you discipline your mind and say, you know, naturally our minds might just start to go down that path of lust? Can you recognize that and stop it? It sounds to me like you can recognize it. Stopping it takes practice, but it can be done, and it's a habit. You just kind of get into this habit. Now, what are some things you can do to help you along this path? One of the things that I've found that's helpful for me, and you might find it helpful too, is to look at everything and see if you can find beauty in it. I look at my wall. I've got soundproofing material up there, right? I've arranged it in a special way. I put it up there that way because it would be fun for me to look at. Like, I would enjoy looking at it, and I can find beauty in it. There's a dead bug on there. Can I find beauty in the dead bug? I'm sure I would be able to, right? Can I look at a blade of grass and find beauty in that? Can I look at something tiny, a flower, and find beauty? Can I look at the sky and see the clouds and see the blue sky and take it in and enjoy the beauty of these things? I'm not lustfully attracted to a blade of grass, but I can find beauty in it. There's beauty all around us. There's beauty. Uh-oh.
Sorry, I was just the idea of being lustfully attracted to a blade of grass.
What?
I want all the grass now. All the grass is mine. No one else can have grass.
Yes.
Reach
Kat,
for
you have
grass.
a very good point. It's hard to find a balance between not being ashamed of sexuality versus showing restraint at the same time. Absolutely. Absolutely. There is a balance there, and there's a fine line. And the real main question you need to ask yourself, I think, and that I've learned to ask myself is, am I drawn to this because I desire it, or do I appreciate it? And the more I find that I desire something, the more I have to recognize that this is leading me down a path toward bondage of more and more and more desire. And I'm not saying that all desire is bad, but we need to have temperance in that. We need to keep it under control. Because if we just let ourselves go in that direction, we end up bound by it. And then we're not free. And then we don't see the beauty all around us. Here's another thing. Can you see beauty in deformities? That's something interesting. You look at a tree, and it got, like maybe it got some storm damage or something, and so it's all bent to one side, and then it started growing in a weird way, and there's like a big old knob of this damage or whatever, right? It's a very interesting thing because you see that damage, and as Ryan was talking about the beauty in pain, the beauty in these types of things, one of the things you'll find in the wood of the tree where there was major damage and then the tree had to grow around it and heal itself and do something different. It had to adapt to that injury. Woodworkers love that. Those are called burls. And woodworkers seek out those burls and will pay top dollar for those burls because the stuff they make from the burls is some of the most beautiful woodworking stuff you can find. Curly maple, flamed maple, these things, all they're based on injury and deformity. But they're so valuable in the woodworking world. So, can you see beauty in all areas. And the more you learn to recognize beauty in a not a human way, not beauty in other humans. Now, there is beauty in other humans. Absolutely. And we can appreciate that. But then once I start to recognize that I'm desiring that thing, that I want that thing, that I'm focused on that thing, and I'm fixated on it, I realize that I'm going down a path toward bondage. And if you can start to recognize that and then divert your attention to something else, you'll feel yourself lift. You'll feel yourself be more free as a result. And it's a beautiful thing. But again, I got to tell you, man, I am so impressed because I didn't think about these things when I was younger. I didn't think about that stuff at all. I just let my, desires run crazy and my hormones go wild and everything like that, So anyway, Ryan, did you have anything else?
Sure. Yeah, as Kat was saying, it's hard because our society capitalizes on sexuality and likes to make us think that is good, I suppose, but at the same time is forcing you to be innocent. It says if you're not innocent, you're ugly, but at the same time, if you're not sexy, you're ugly. And so it's like, well, you're just ugly then. Great, what do you do? So it's really difficult. I think in the end, you have to do away with whatever society thinks. You just be like, okay, society, whatever. I don't care what you think. I think that it is right to say that innocence is beautiful, right? There is beauty in innocence. When we look at innocent things, we see that's beautiful, that's natural. And there is innocence in, there is beauty in sexuality. There is, in both, right? But it's a matter of doing them both right, doing them both to, have obviously not just having a balance, but doing them both what is right in the heart, what is morally correct, right? So it is definitely an issue that I can see in the world and identify with, and having experienced in my own way. So I would just say, who cares what society thinks? In the end, just don't care, I guess. You know, I really love what Joe was saying about kind of basically the virtue here, the practice here is abstinence. Abstinence means to abstain, means to choose not to. And you can abstain from good things. One thing I really liked is, hold on, I gotta, Easy said, where is it? I gotta find it. Okay.
It's in the chat.
Breaking a fast after a, thanks, Joe. I was,
You're
yeah,
welcome.
now I remember where to
Glad I
look.
can help.
Easy said, breaking a fast after a long intermittent fast gave me one of the most painful and beautiful moments in my life. Seeing a sunset over the mountains of the desert. The food was dry, but so good. And let me tell you, when you fast, food tastes better. When you fast, the joys of life are more joyful. And I would say that if you want to prepare yourself for experiencing beauty in a better way, fasting is your answer. And fasting isn't just from food, it can be anything. Abstaining from anything. But here's the duality of this. Joe was talking about self-control, right? What is fasting but an act of self-control, right? If you want to be good at turning down those sexual desires so that beauty can shine, because honestly, it's distracting, right? Is it not? Your sexual desires can be incredibly distracting from doing good things, or even just appreciating something, right? Just like Joe said, it's that desire for self rather than the desire to appreciate. If you fast. If you meow the dough, I know this is maybe hard, maybe not easy, and it depends on your environment, it depends on what's offered you and your situation in life. But if you can learn to fast on things, practice that self-control, the more you do that, the easier it will be to disregard the distractions of the sexual desires and things like that, and more be fulfilled or be encapsulated and be just brought to a higher level by the appreciation of beauty. So they all go hand in hand. So one thing you can do to help yourself is to start a fast. And what is fasting? Fasting can be many things. Some people fast from food. Some people fast from television. Some people fast from certain kinds of drinks, right? Some people fast from certain kinds of entertainment. It can be anything. And it doesn't have to be something that's bad for you. It can be something that's good for you, right? Entertainment isn't bad, it's good for you. Food isn't bad for you, it's good for you. But when you choose not to, when you exercise the freedom to not be a slave to that good, right? Because we've established here, sexuality is a good thing, right? We have to procreate, right? in order to survive as human beings. And it's a beautiful thing, right? But if you can abstain from that good, right? If you can abstain from other goods, you increase yourself, you increase in yourself the ability to have self-control, right? And by increasing your self-control, what do you get? You get more freedom. You get more freedom because then you're less of a slave to all the other things. You said I limit my video game time and my TV time. Awesome. Perfect. So you are practicing abstinence to a degree there, which is great. Continue to do that. That's really, really good thing. And if you can, find other ways to practice your self-control. Find a good and say, no, I'm not going to do that for a whole week, or maybe I'm not going to do that for 5 days, and see where you go with it. One thing that I really appreciate about my religion is that we have a very strongly recommended fast season, over 40 days, where we choose something and we fast for it every week, except for on Sunday, where we celebrate. And on that day where we celebrate, we usually do that thing we are fasting from because it is a good thing. But putting away those good desires helps us free ourselves from that slavery of what is good, because we cling to those things. So anyways, I would highly recommend finding something you can fast from, and then use it to celebrate on the end of the week, and then continue that fast and try that for a couple of weeks. That practice of self-control for that one good will carry over into many other things that require self-control. And sexual desire is definitely one of those things that require self-control. So I applaud you, and I thank you very much for this topic. I'm going to end with that. Obviously, there's endless amount of things that can be said, but we can't talk forever. And we are at our time, I suppose. But
we can talk forever. We started late, man. We can go on for a few minutes.
Yeah, that's true. We did start late. But anyways, I'm going to give it back over to Joe in case he has anything he wants to add.
I do, actually. One of the things, I think, this goes back to the anime, and it goes right along with what you were saying there, Ryan, as well. There is, let's see, I believe it was Full Metal Alchemist. Were the 7 deadly sins, were they the enemies in that? One of the things you'll notice is that the deadly sin of lust and the deadly sin of gluttony were like partners. Gluttony is an inordinate attachment to food, or drink or drug or whatever, right? Something that gives you bodily pleasure, right? They go hand in hand. And so disciplining yourself in eating and guarding against gluttony is going to help you guard yourself against lust as well. Yes. And to overindulge in food is going to cause you to be weaker in the area of desire and attraction and stuff like that, right? So this is well documented by many, many saints, Another thing that is great about Catholicism, there's a rich history of people doing things and trying things and experimenting and learning about how all this stuff works. But it goes right in, it's right in there in that anime too, in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, where lust and gluttony were like gluttony was like kind of like lust's subordinate or, servant or whatever, right? Like lust was this beautiful woman, whatever, and then gluttony was this big huge dude, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he totally, like that's totally real life stuff. I mean, not obviously not the anime, but like those vices go hand in hand. And there was a I believe it was Saint Benedict. There are Benedictine monks, right, in Catholicism, and there is a Benedictine fasting regimen. It's basically the Benedictine diet, right? Where but most of the monks will not do it. But those that do find an incredible amount of freedom. The Benedictine diet is one small meal per day. And maybe even no water except for that one time with that meal. Now, I can't encourage you to not drink water. I mean, I've mentioned on here many times, drink water, right? And here's the other thing. This is also something done by adults. So if you happen to be an adolescent, it's not the time to be depriving yourself of food and starving yourself. This is the time your body needs nourishment, right? So it'd be good to talk to a health professional before, doing this, because, hey, there's all kinds of things out there that some of us might have. There's hypoglycemia. There's all kinds of stuff, right? And it's good to know where you're at, where your body is physically before you take on any kind of diet regimen or anything like that. But what I read a book by a Benedictine monk who actually did the practice that Saint Benedict did with eating, and he basically said, okay, so all day I don't eat, I don't drink any water. I go do my work, which, for his job, he was tending whatever garden it was that they had. I think they might have been, I can't remember what the vocation they had, but his was tending the gardens of, the grounds that they lived on and stuff.
That's a lot of physical movement.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But what he found was that he was much more taken with the beauty, like Ryan was talking about, of the garden. And he was able to focus on his work that much more once he got, into the routine of this eating. And then his meal was basically some water, a little bit of bread, maybe some meat or cheese, just small amounts. And then that was it. That was what he ate. And he ate that at dinner time, like at supper time. And then he would, do his prayers and go to bed and then get up. And that was his routine. But that was the only time he would eat or drink was at dinner time. And he said that the freedom that comes from disciplining yourself in that area is just incredible. We think discipline is a form of bondage. We do, right? This is like, hey, man, I'm imposing all these rules on myself. I don't like rules. Freedom is the absence of rules. No, it's not. Freedom is the ability to do what you're meant to do what you're called to do. And discipline enables that. Anytime we discipline ourselves in a certain area, what happens is you begin to trust yourself in that area. And when you can find yourself trustworthy in any given area, you no longer have to worry about that. And so it's taken off your plate and you can focus, you're free to focus on the things that you're called to do, that you feel like you're meant to do, that you're designed to do. But when you lack discipline, when you don't trust yourself, you're drawn away by all these distractions like Ryan was talking about. If we succumb to the vice of lust all the time, we're distracted by every beautiful woman that walks past or any beautiful woman that shows up on the TV screen or whatever. It's major distraction and our mind goes places it shouldn't, and it's crazy. And then we're not able to focus on what we're designed to do. That's real freedom. When you're able to focus on that, when you're free to really dig into the things that you were built for. And so, Meow, asking these questions is so huge and so important, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for taking this path and going this route, because you're developing self-control simply by asking the question of yourself. And it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
So I'm proud of you. So anyway, that's pretty much what I have. Anything else, Ryan or Princess?
Nope, not here. I think that's great. Good place to end it.
Perfect. Well then, Meow, thank you for the topics. And thank you all in the chat for being here. Ash, thank you for your topic in the beginning. And you guys make this show happen. Without your topics, we wouldn't have a show. Well, we might. It just wouldn't be as cool. It'd be me and Ryan talking about stuff,
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't be as cool without you guys, that's for sure.
That is absolutely true. And so, guys, thank you so much for your topics. If you want to submit a topic, I never said this in the beginning, but you go to our website, don'tworrywednesday.com. Click the Submit a Topic button, and the little thing will scroll out, and you just fill that thing out. Take pride in the fact that you're a human. When you get asked that question, say, yes, I'm a human being.
Dang straight I am. That's the best.
I know it's fun to say, I'm not human, I'm an anime character, or I'm not human, I'm a whatever, right?
I'm a robot.
I'm a robot.
I'm an attack helicopter.
Oh, that's right. I'm a Apache attack helicopter.
Exactly. But you know what? It just leads to problems because we're not going to get your topic.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's going to get, thrown into some weird spot, or we're not going to be able to find it as quickly. It's a lot more smooth if you just admit, hey, you know what? I'm human. And that's cool. Cat,
practice some humility, guys.
You're a cat.
And honor.
That's great. Yes, Tef, you are Tef.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. We could not do this show without you. Thank you, Ryan, for being here with me. Thank you, Princess, for helping us out and running this in the background and being totally amazing. And you guys have a great week. We will see you next time on Don't Worry Wednesday, next Wednesday. So until then,
That's right.
Take care, you guys. We love you.
Love you guys. Bye now.
Bye-bye.